Some people are not tired because they did too much. They are tired because their mind never really stops. The day ends. They get into bed. The room is quiet, but their brain is still going, replaying a text, reworking a conversation, thinking about tomorrow's meeting, wondering why one small change in someone's tone bothered them so much. If that sounds like you, there is usually a reason for it. People who think too much are often told the same things. You need to relax. You care too much. You are overreacting. You are in your head again. But that is usually not the real story. The real story is that the mind is still trying to protect you. It keeps going back over things because it does not want to miss anything. It keeps replaying moments because it is trying to catch the problem early. It keeps preparing for conversations that have not happened yet because part of you believes it is safer to be ready than to be surprised. That is why you can be driving home and still be stuck in a conversation that ended hours ago. Why you can be lying in bed with your body exhausted, but your jaw still tight. Why your phone is face down, the lights are off, and your mind is still working like something important has not been handled yet. And that is the hidden pattern. What looks like overthinking is often a mind that learned to stay alert, to prepare early, and to look for trouble before trouble has the chance to arrive. And what looks like overthinking is often something older than anxiety. It is a mind that learned it was safer not to relax too soon. What people see is the behavior. They see you reread the text before you send it. They see you explain yourself a little too much. They see you go quiet after one strange moment in a conversation. They see you hesitate, backtrack, soften your wording, or ask, "Did that come out wrong?" when nobody else in the room is even thinking about it anymore. So they give it a name. You are overthinking. You are too sensitive. You are making it bigger than it is. You need to stop caring so much. You need to relax. That is the part people see. What they usually do not see is the reason your mind is doing it. They do not see that your brain may be scanning for the point where something could go wrong. They do not see that when you replay a moment, you are often trying to catch the problem early. They do not see that when you over-prepare, over-explain, or rethink one small detail for hours, part of your mind is not being dramatic. It is being protective. That is the hidden part, not the behavior, the job behind the behavior. And once you see that, a lot of these everyday moments start to look different. You are not just standing in the kitchen rereading an email. You are checking whether your tone could cause a problem later. You are not just staring at a text that says, "Sounds good." You are trying to figure out whether that period means the person is fine or not fine. You are not just walking into a meeting prepared. You are walking in with backup answers, backup wording, backup versions of yourself, because part of you believes it is safer to adjust quickly than to be caught off guard. That is why this pattern is so exhausting. It is not just thinking, it is constant prevention. And here is the social trap. The very same pattern that drains you is often the one people praise. They call you thoughtful, careful with words, self-aware, emotionally intelligent, mature, and sometimes all of that is true. But that is also what makes this pattern harder to notice. Because when overthinking makes you look polished, responsible, and emotionally aware, people assume it is helping you. They do not see how much energy it costs to stay that edited all the time. Some people are not calm. They are just heavily edited. And modern life makes this worse. Work rewards over-preparing. Texting makes tone easy to obsess over. Social life happens through screens, where one short reply can sit in your chest for hours. And a lot of adults carry all of this alone in the car, in the kitchen, in the apartment at night, where nobody can see how much effort it takes to look fine on the outside. So yes, people notice that you think too much. What they usually do not notice is the hidden pattern underneath it. Your mind may be trying to prevent pain before it arrives. A lot of overthinkers are running the same old program. Anticipate, monitor, rehearse, prevent. Anticipate what might happen. Monitor what people mean. Rehearse how to respond. Prevent embarrassment, rejection, conflict, surprise. That is the hidden pattern. It is not just thinking too much. It is a mind trying to stay a step ahead of anything that could hurt, expose, or destabilize you. So before life even fully happens, part of your mind is already out there, meeting it early, scanning the room, reading the text, guessing the tone, preparing the answer, trying to make sure nothing catches you off guard. And that is exactly why this pattern can be so hard to notice at first. Because from the inside, it does not feel pointless. It feels responsible. It feels careful. Sometimes it even feels smart. But there is a difference between thinking and looping. Thinking helps you move. Overthinking keeps you circling. Reflection helps you understand. Rumination keeps you emotionally stuck. Problem-solving ends. Mental looping just changes costumes. It becomes a different text, a different meeting, a different person, a different night in bed, but the same internal job is still running underneath it all. Scan it, decode it, prepare for it. Do not let it surprise you. That is why someone can spend an hour thinking and still feel no clearer when they are done. Because clarity was never the only goal. Control was in there too. Protection was in there too. And the science behind this is not actually that mysterious. Some minds stay mentally active long after the moment is over. The brain keeps auditing. It keeps reviewing what happened, what could happen, what might have been missed. And uncertainty by itself can be enough to keep that system online. Not danger. Uncertainty. A vague reply, a strange pause, a look you cannot quite read. For some people, ambiguity is enough to wake the whole thing up. And there is another reason the loop keeps going. Imagined problem solving can feel rewarding in the moment, not because it is truly helping, but because the brain likes the feeling of working on it. So even when the thinking is draining you, part of your system still experiences it as useful, as action, as preparation. That is why the loop can feel productive while quietly going nowhere. You are not weak. Your mind is overemployed. And once you see that, a lot of ordinary moments start to make more sense. It is not that the email mattered that much. It is not that the date mattered that much. It is not that the text message was life or death. It is that something unclear in the moment hit an old alarm. So you reread the email, you replay the date on the drive home, you look at sounds good and wonder why it suddenly feels heavy. You walk into a room already preparing for 3 versions of how it could go, not because you are irrational, because some part of your mind has learned that being ready feels safer than being surprised. This is why telling someone to just stop thinking usually does almost nothing. The thinking is not random. It is trying to do a job. It is trying to predict the awkward moment before it happens. It is trying to soften rejection before it lands. It is trying to catch disappointment early, while it still feels manageable. Some minds do not fear pain itself. They fear being unprepared for it. And that is an important difference. Because when a mind has learned to treat preparation like safety, rest starts to feel risky. Letting go feels careless. Uncertainty feels expensive. Peace can even feel unnatural, because peace means you are no longer scanning, no longer rehearsing, no longer trying to stay ahead. The loop feels useful because it was once useful, and in many people, that job began as protection. So the hidden pattern is not simply that you think too much. It is that your mind has been trained to believe preparation is safer than peace. So where does a pattern like that begin? For a lot of people, not in adulthood, not in the office, not in dating, not in some random season of stress. It begins much earlier than that. And not always in what people would call a traumatic home. Not always in a house with screaming, chaos, or some obvious disaster everyone could point to. Sometimes it begins in very ordinary homes. Clean kitchens, regular school mornings, family dinners, weekend errands. Nothing dramatic on the outside. But inside those homes, there was tension you could feel without anyone naming it. Moods shifted, mistakes felt expensive. One person's anger could fill the whole house. One bad tone could change the whole evening. And being easy, being low maintenance, careful, undemanding made life simpler for everyone. That is where a lot of overthinking is first learned. Not as a philosophy, as a survival skill. A child stands in the hallway and hears footsteps before seeing the face. And before the parent even appears, the child is already guessing. Are they tired, irritated, fine, Should I ask now or wait? The child walks into the kitchen before dinner and looks at the adults first, not the food. One cabinet closes a little too hard, and something in the body goes quiet. At the table, the child somehow knows tonight is a night to say less, to stay light, to not bring one more problem into the room. That child learns very fast. Speak carefully. Ask carefully. Need less, scan first, feel later. No one has to sit them down and teach it. The room teaches it. Repetition teaches it. The emotional weather of the house teaches it. And after enough years, it stops feeling like a strategy. It just feels like your personality. You become the easy kid, the mature one, the one who does not make things harder, the one who notices everything, the one who can tell almost instantly when something is off. And if you spent enough years reading everyone else, you may have grown into an adult who can detect tension in a room faster than you can detect your own hunger. That is how these patterns survive. The child grows up, the house changes, the people change, you move out, you get older, you get your own place, your own job, your own life. But the pattern stays. Now it looks more sophisticated, more adult, more socially acceptable. Now it is rereading tone, predicting reactions, apologizing before anyone is even upset, scripting conversations in the shower, needing to know where you stand before you can fully breathe. And because it looks so normal from the outside, it can take years to realize that what you call being thoughtful is sometimes old vigilance in nicer clothes. After a while, you are not just noticing people, you are building mental versions of them, what they might say, what they probably meant, how disappointed they are, whether they are pulling away, whether you need to fix something before it breaks. And the person you keep arguing with, impressing, pleasing, or defending yourself against in your mind is often no longer the real person. It is your nervous system's prediction of them. That is why overthinking can feel so convincing. You are not only reacting to what happened, you are reacting to what your mind believes could happen next. And if your system learned early that small shifts mattered, then of course it keeps trying to read the shift before it becomes a problem. But there is a cost to living that way. If all your attention keeps going outward, you do not just lose rest. You start losing contact with your own center. You get very good at reading what other people feel, while becoming less sure of what you feel. You know when the room changes, but not always when your own body is tired. You know how to keep things smooth, but not always what you actually want. You learn other people's weather before you learn your own climate, and that is one of the quietest losses in all of this. Because over time, a person can become so skilled at staying ahead of tension that they no longer know what it feels like to simply arrive in themselves. They know how to prepare. They know how to adjust. They know how to read, soften, anticipate, edit, but resting inside their own unedited experience, that can start to feel unfamiliar. That is how the hidden pattern is built, quietly, repeatedly, in ordinary rooms where peace depended on being one step ahead. But that is the problem with survival patterns. They do not stay in the room where they were learned. They follow you into your job, into your relationships, into your body, into the quiet parts of your life where, technically, nothing is happening and your mind still does not know how to stop preparing. At work, it can look almost admirable. You rewrite the Slack message 3 times before sending it. You reread the email after it is already gone, just to make sure the wording did not sound too sharp, too cold, too needy, too much. You prepare for the meeting, then prepare again for how you might need to explain yourself if the room shifts. You sound calm, thoughtful, professional, measured. Meanwhile, inside, you are burning. Burning time, burning energy, burning attention that could have gone to actual work, actual rest, actual life. And the worst part is that this pattern often gets rewarded. People call you thorough, careful, reliable, great with nuance. They trust you because you think ahead. They do not see that what they are praising is sometimes not peace, not confidence, not even clarity. Sometimes what gets rewarded as professionalism is really just anxiety wearing good posture, and then it follows you into love. A pause in a text message can change your whole afternoon. A reply that is a little shorter than usual can sit in your chest like bad weather. You replay what you said after a date. You wonder whether you came off too interested, too distant, too awkward, too available. You start trying to predict conflict before it even exists. You prepare explanations for conversations that have not happened. You imagine how to fix something before you even know whether anything is broken. And because all of that mental activity feels like care, it is easy to confuse it with closeness. But they are not the same thing. Intimacy starts to feel less like being with someone and more like mentally managing them. Managing their tone, managing their response, managing what they might have meant, managing how they may feel about you tomorrow based on one small thing today. That is not peace. That is surveillance wearing the face of attachment. And of course, the body pays for all of this. The shoulders stay a little too high, even when you are supposed to be relaxing. The stomach stays tight for reasons you cannot fully explain. You sleep, but it does not feel like recovery. You rest, but the body never fully believes the shift is over. Even the weekend can feel strange, not restful, just louder. More space for the mind to keep working. More silence for old loops to echo in. That is another cruelty of this pattern. Exhaustion without relief, sleep without recovery, silence without peace, and then there is solitude. The apartment is quiet, but your mind is not. The phone is down, but the brain is still scrolling. No one is talking to you, but 5 conversations are still happening internally. One part of you is replaying what happened. Another is preparing for what might happen. Another is editing how you should have said it. Another is trying to decode what they meant. Another is already bracing for the next shift in tone, the next awkward moment, the next thing that might need to be managed before it turns into pain. This is the cruel paradox. The pattern promised safety through preparation, but eventually life begins to feel like one long emergency drill. Nothing terrible is happening, but your system does not know that yet, so it keeps preparing anyway, and over time, the cost gets deeper than fatigue. You start knowing what other people feel before you know what you feel. You know how to avoid conflict before you know what you want. You know how to keep the peace before you know what actually brings you peace. You become skilled at adjustment, skilled at anticipation, skilled at reading subtle shifts in other people, and less certain of your own center. That may be the deepest cost of all. You do not just lose energy, you begin to lose immediacy. You begin to lose contact with your own unedited experience. Because if your mind is always one step ahead, then part of you is never fully here. Not fully in the conversation, not fully in the meal, not fully in the drive home, not fully in the date, not fully in the night, not fully in your own body. Always a little ahead, always a little braced, always a little elsewhere, and when the loop does go quiet, peace does not always come first. Sometimes emptiness comes first, because the overthinking was not only draining you, it was also occupying you. It gave your mind a job, a focus, a problem to circle, a reason to stay activated. And when that noise suddenly drops, what can appear underneath it is not immediate relief, but space, unfilled space, unmanaged space. A strange silence that asks nothing from you and that can feel unfamiliar enough to be almost unsettling. That may be why some people return to the loop without even realizing it, not because they enjoy suffering, but because the mind would rather stay busy than feel unguarded. And that may be the real cost. Not just exhaustion, but the slow feeling that your life is being lived one mental rehearsal away from the present moment. And if you see yourself in this, then maybe this is the part you were never told. You are allowed to be tired. You are allowed to stop calling this stupidity. You are allowed to stop calling yourself dramatic, weak, ridiculous, broken, too much. And you are allowed to admit that a great deal of your intelligence may have been spent not on living freely, but on trying to stay safe. That matters, because people who think too much usually do have a hidden pattern. They learn that safety lives in anticipation, in reading the room early, in catching the shift in tone, in preparing the answer before the question is fully asked, in staying mentally ahead, just in case life turns sharp without warning. That is the pattern. And seeing it does not make it disappear overnight. It does not suddenly quiet the mind, soften the body, or give back all the years this pattern may have taken from you. but it can end one old injustice. It can end the lie that this was stupidity. It can end the lie that this was a character flaw. It can end the lie that you were simply failing at peace. The tragedy is not only that the mind kept going, it is that it may have spent years trying to create safety without ever getting to feel safe. Years preparing, years scanning, years rehearsing, years arriving early to pain that had not even happened yet. And if that is true, then maybe the deepest grief here is not just exhaustion. Maybe it is how much of your life had to be lived in defense. So, if your mind has been rehearsing life for years, would you still recognize yourself in a day that did not require defense? If thinking became the armor, what would remain of you in a life where you no longer had to stay one step ahead? That is not a small question. It is the kind of question a person may spend years avoiding by staying busy in their own mind. But it is still there, quietly waiting. This is Psyche-Life. We do not shame the pattern. We trace the life that built it.